Today we have a very special guest, Major Retired Stephen McGeorge, and I have to put my glasses on because I have to read his bio here. He served in the Army History Program since 2002. He has been the TRADOC Deputy Chief Historian since 2007. He is part of the Army World War I Centennial Commemoration Team, which led multiple staff rides to U.S. battlefields in France in 2018. He has visited the Meuse-Argonne battlefield 4 times, including the Lost Battalion pocket. His book, Images from Over There, about personal photography in the AEF, was published last year. He is also from Oregon, like I am, and so I particularly am happy to have Steve here to talk about the Lost Battalion of World War I. Thanks, Steve.
I want to correct, I was not born in Oregon, but I became an Oregonian because after I retired from the Army, it was the longest place I'd ever lived in one place until I moved to Virginia. So and I've got 3 kids, 2 of whom are in Oregon now, and my 3rd one also considers Oregon home. So there may be a post-retirement move to Oregon in my future as well. We don't have a lot of time. We've got to cover a lot of material. And I'm going to do that by basically kind of skimming the wave tops about the Lost Battalion. I'd really like to spend more time on the Q&A afterwards. How many of you have ever heard of the Lost Battalion of World War I? A handful. That's good. That's better than most. I guarantee if you were alive in the 1920s or the 1930s, you would have known and heard of the Lost Battalion. It was the World War I story. And just to show you a little of the historiography of what goes on with the Lost Battalion, probably the most printed book about the Lost Battalion is a little book called History and Rhymes of the Lost Battalion, written by a corporal. He called himself Buck Private. Buck Private, he actually was a corporal. Lee McCullum, who was not in the Lost Battalion, but was in the 77th Division, and wrote this little book, starting, his first edition came out about 1923, and it told the story, briefly, of the Lost Battalion. That book went through 22 editions. It was published at least, now some estimates say as high as 7 million copies published. I think that's an exaggeration. I am confident over 2 million copies of History and Rhymes of the Lost Battalion were published. The VFW and American Legion gave them out like candy to their members and anybody else who was interested. And that's kind of the first written telling of the story of the Lost Battalion. The next big event is the Lost Battalion by Tom Johnston and Fletcher Pratt, both of whom had been correspondents in World War I and were involved in some initial reporting. In 1938, they collaborated on this work and spent lots of time interviewing Lost Battalion veterans and putting the story together into this book, which was really about the only really definitive work on the Lost Battalion incident until recent times. About 2002, several other historians got interested in telling the story. 5 Days in October is written by a guy named Robert Farrell from, I got this right, Indiana University. There's so many Indiana universities. Indiana University. He's a Pershing, John J. Pershing basher. Every book he's ever written denigrates John J. Pershing. And this is the 1 over 100,000 view of the Lost Battalion, and does plenty of bashing of Pershing and some of his other subordinate generals. Blood in the Meuse-Argonne is a interesting description of the events. It has lots of sidebars, lots of little snippets of quotations. I find it rather a little confusing. And then here's sort of the Bible. This is the guy that should be giving this talk, Robert J. Laplander. This is 612 pages on the Lost Battalion. Robert J. Laplander is the world authority on the Lost Battalion. He's visited the site, I think he's up to about 21 or 22 times now. As part of the Army World War I Commemoration Team, Center of Military History Commemoration Team last year, he was the only civilian to put on invitational travel orders and brought to France to guide people through the Lost Battalion site. And most of what I take and put into the presentation here is based on Bob Laplander's work. Pretty amazing stuff. And he is the way-deep historian on the Lost Battalion. My opening slide here, get it right? Yes. The opening slide here is a interesting painting. of the Lost Battalion incident, done by a commercial illustrator named Frank Schoonover. And just to tell you about how important this event was, the event happens obviously in October, we're 1918. We're at 100 years and 2 days post-event today. Schoonover did this painting and it was published 4 months after the real event in the Ladies' Home Journal. 4 months after the event, Schoonover's painting is there. At this point, nobody's heard of Sergeant Frank York or Corporal Alvin York. Nobody's heard of Alvin York. The big event of World War I is the Lost Battalion. There are a couple of problems with this. You can see the person with the white flag bringing the German surrender request to Colonel Whittlesey is a German. In reality, the person that brought the surrender request into the pocket was a captured American. He'd been captured late in the event, held by the Germans for about half a day, and the Germans said, we need you to bring this letter back to your commanding officer. And the individual was a private named Lowell Hollingshead. He didn't want to do it. The German said, we'll write a nice letter that says that we're asking you to do this. You're not doing this of your own free will. We're telling you you're going to do it. And he brings the surrender request into the pocket. But it's actually an American, not a German. So it's pretty fanciful. Schoonover was not there. He'd never seen the site. He did this based on descriptions of the site. But that gives you an idea of how the historiography of this event went down. It's less than 4 months later. It is in the Ladies' Home Journal as our gallant American soldiers. And interestingly, the number, the little caption, you can't read it, says about 700 Americans in the pocket. Over time, the numbers have constantly gone down. The official Army numbers went down because the Army was trying to officially account for who was actually there with the unit during the actual event. And so most of the modern historical things, if you go on to Wikipedia, you'll see a number of about 500 or so. Robert Laplander in his book says, no, in the period they were saying 700, he has exhaustively gone through name by name, roster by roster, every unit that was possibly there, and his figure is about 680 soldiers that are cut off in the Lost Battalion. And we'll get to what happens there a little further on. This event takes place in the context of the Meuse-Argonne, the Battle of the Meuse-Argonne, which kicks off on 26 September. That is the largest battle in American history, then or now. It goes on for 47 days. It takes place immediately on the heels of the American Standing Hell offensive, which took place the 12th to about the 16th of September, 1918. Standing Hell had to go well because that was going to be the fulcrum which John J. Pershing could use in negotiations with the French to create an absolutely independent American army that would fight entirely under American officers. So they spent lots of time, energy, and effort making sure that the Standing Hell battle goes well. Fortuitously, as that battle kicked off, the Germans were already withdrawing, and it was pretty much a walkover, certainly in comparison to Meuse-Argonne. But they stacked the deck. They took every American unit that was the longest tenured time in France and the best trained and stacked them up to put into the Standing Hell battle. 2 weeks later, they have to execute the Meuse-Argonne, and they can't move those troops fast enough. So there's a lot of relatively green divisions that go into combat, real combat, for the first time in Meuse-Argonne. And that's certainly the case of the 77th Division, which is the parent division that the Lost Battalion belongs to. This is their commanding general. This is Major General Robert Alexander, commands the 77th Division. He's interesting in his time. He's interesting now. He got a law degree in 1886, civilian law degree, and then said, I don't know if I like this law stuff. I'm going to enlist in the Army. He enlisted as a private in the United States Army, regular Army, 1886. By 1889, he's moved from private to first sergeant. And a little bit later in 1889, he received a commission as a second lieutenant. He's an Army War College graduate in 1910, makes brigadier general in February 1918, and by the time of the events, he's a major general commanding the 77th Division. He's got a tremendous, as Bob Laplander would say, has a large chip on his shoulder. He is an enlisted guy. He's now a prior enlisted guy, now a 2-star general. And he's a pusher, just like Pershing. He's not going to push back against John J. Pershing when Pershing says, we're going to do this, and if you don't produce results, you'll be fired. This shows the plan of attack for the Muse Argonne. Make sure I get my little pointer here. The little line there is the jump-off line, 26 September, and this dark line up here is the line which they actually reached about 2 days later. It's not good progress. John J. Pershing wanted them to go 10, 12, 15 miles on the first day, which did not happen. 77th Division has the left portion of the battle space here, and their objectives are all within the Argonne Forest. The Argonne Forest is thick. It has been fought over in 1914 and 1915 by the Germans and the French. The Germans and the French both lost tremendous numbers of soldiers there, and eventually the French said, we give up, we're not even going to try and take the Argonne Forest back from the Germans. The Germans then fortify it continuously from 1915 up to 1918 when this occurs. And they use it as a rest area for tired units that need a rest. There's not going to be any action there. Nobody's pushing against the Argonne Forest. They have whole camp cities in there with swimming pools, indoor movie theaters, concrete bunkers, concrete trenches, miles upon miles of barbed wire, and it is like a forest primeval. There are places in the Argonne Forest where you will never see the sun. Even in the dead of winter, you will never see the sun. It is very thick. Nonetheless, that's the 77th Division has to push up through the Argonne Forest. 28th Division is adjacent to it. That's Pennsylvania National Guard. 35th Division, which is Kansas and Missouri National Guard. 91st Division, which is Pacific Northwest. 37th Division, which is Ohio. 79th Division is a drafty division, mostly from Pennsylvania and New Jersey. 4th Division is nominally a regular division. 80th Division, the Blue Ridge Division from Virginia, and the 33rd from Illinois. And then the French 18th Division has several American divisions subordinated to it. They're fighting on the east bank of the Meuse River. The Meuse River is here. So the battle space is bounded by the Meuse River on the east, Argonne Forest on the west. And again, I draw your attention, this shows the front line trace of 2 days. The 77th Division is right here, and they've only gone about 2 kilometers in 2 days, which figures into the story as we can proceed through it. This shows the situation a little bit later. 77th Division is here. They've made some progress. This shows a gap. They're almost from the outset. That's the divisional 77th Division boundary here, and almost from the day one, when they jump off on the 26th of October, adjacent units to their left, 368th Infantry and French forces start to veer off to the left. So there's a gap on the left boundary of the 77th Division. That's not good. But that is in accordance with Pershing's directive. His overall directive for the Meuse Argonne was every division will push ahead without regard to what's happening on its flanks. Hoping that everybody would fight and move forward at the same rate, which they didn't. Nonetheless, that was how Pershing said the battle ought to go, and nobody was going to back off and back talk him about it. 77th Division is particularly the 308th Infantry, which is the lost battalion it comes from, mostly, is to go up to this trace here. There's the Charlevoix Mill, and there's a hill mass here, and they're supposed to advance in this direction. Their axis of advance takes them this direction. This is after, this depicts, and we'll see another map, depicts the actual pocket where the lost battalion is. Now, they were never lost, number one, lots of the myths and legends of the lost battalion. The battalion was never lost. They knew exactly where they were, and the Germans knew exactly where they were. Their higher division headquarters did not always know where they were. And when they were referred to as a lost battalion, it was meant lost as in the sense these guys are surrounded, cut off, and there probably won't be many survivors. So they really didn't mean that they were wandering around the woods lost. They were lost as in these guys aren't going to be coming home. And it's not just one battalion. It's portions of 2 battalions of the 308th Infantry, 77th Division, a separate company from the 307th Infantry, and 2 companies from the 306th Machine Gun Battalion. The U.S. Army had machine gun battalions. So there were 2 machine gun battalion companies that were accompanying the force commanded by Charles Whittlesey, known as the Lost Battalion. In all, when they go in, initially they have with them 9 heavy machine guns, Hotchkiss model 1914 heavy machine guns, a very heavy but very effective machine gun. They have exactly 4 enlisted medics. They have no medical officers. That's just an idea of what they've got with them when they go in. This is what the pocket looks like when it matures about the 2nd of October. They have advanced this direction. They've crossed the Charlevoix Brook, which feeds this mill pond, and they're almost immediately surrounded. And they form what's known as the pocket. There's Company K, 307th Infantry, that's commanded by Captain Nelson Holderman. Company E of 308th, the headquarters, which is Colonel Whittlesey and his headquarters detachment, and then the other remaining companies. That space is about, if you measure it carefully, Robert Laplander has walked it many times. It is a space about 300 meters end to end, about 100 meters deep. And you'll see some photographic imagery. They're right up against this road here. The Langley-Eustis road is about 30 feet above where the pocket is. They're basically at the base of a cliff. Now that sounds pretty bad, but it does some good things for them. Because they're at the base of that cliff, the Germans are unable to drop any really heavy artillery fire on them because they're right up against the base of the cliff. The Germans don't have any artillery that'll fire plunging fire, high-angle plunging fire, and directly put German artillery on the position. But, as you can see, they're surrounded by machine guns, trench mortar teams here, machine gunners, and all kinds of other Germans armed to the teeth trying to get rid of this stubborn pocket of Americans. This is a photograph taken not very long after the fighting. That's the trace of the road. The Fienerville is this direction. La Vieux-Jet is this direction. La Vieux-Jet is so small you can't even find it on a map anymore. That road, if you continue it, goes all the way up to Alpes, which is a major town on the main road route from south to north in the western portion of the Meuse. And you can actually see there's a stream, a little bit of a stream in the bottom. That stream is spring-fed. That becomes the only source of drinking water for these guys for the 5 or 6 days they're there. You can see some of those fighting positions. There's fighting positions there. There's fighting positions right up against the base of the bluffs there. And that's about a 30-foot, almost sheer drop. It's about a 65% grade, almost sheer drop from the La Vieux-Jet road down to where the pocket is. So that is the pocket, where there is about eventually 680 American soldiers. Okay. I'm going to walk through, this is the part where I surf the wave tops and walk you through the timeline and talk about some significant events that happened that get us to the point where the Lost Battalion is actually surrounded and cut off. Okay. Lost Battalion timeline. Battle of the Meuse-Argonne kicks off on the 26th of September, about 0300, between 0230 and 0300 that morning. There's a massive artillery preparation fire, and the troops kick off at 0 hour, about 06, in the case of the 77th, into the Argonne Forest. By the 27th, they have only made it about 2 kilometers, about 2 kilometer advance, far short of what General Pershing had hoped for and directed to happen. There's heavy German resistance. The adjacent units to the 77th have veered off to the left, so there's open space on the left that is worrisome. Colonel Prescott points this out, and he's promptly relieved. He's replaced by a regular Army officer named Cromwell Stacy. Cromwell Stacy was an old-time regular Army officer, fairly competent guy, had lots of connections throughout the AEF and in the clique of real old officers in the Army. That figures into some things later. General Alexander, the guy we saw up front, on the 28th, orders them to continue the advance, continue to attack. They try that by about 4 o'clock, 1600 in the afternoon, stall. The 1st Battalion, 308th, which is now commanded by Charles W. Whittlesey, realizes they have no contact with any adjacent units. Whittlesey, they're actually not, I don't have a good map that shows this. It's difficult to find a good one that shows it, but they're actually, when they advance this 2 kilometers or so, They're on a hill called the Home Mort, which means the dead man. That's encouraging, right? We're on Dead Man's Hill. He's got a full battalion, but 4 of his companies are he never actually used the word cut off, but he says, I'm out of liaison, which means you can't contact him. He knows who's in front of him, there's Germans in front of him. Can't figure out who's on the right, can't figure out who's on the left, doesn't really have a communication with the rear, and so he takes this four company force that he's got and forms a square perimeter on the forward slope of the Mort Home. They're on the front slope of the Mort Home, exposed to all kinds of German artillery fire, machine gun fire, taking casualties, and this is called the small pocket. So when we talk about Whittlesey, he's actually been cut off before he gets into the big pocket, the real pocket. He's had this experience in the small pocket, and it goes from the 28th into the 29th. The 29th, the division realizes that those 4 companies are out in front and out of contact. They begin to try and mobilize elements of the 307th, one of the sister regiments, and the 308th Infantry, try to close up with the 1st Battalion 308th and relieve these 4 companies that are on the front slope of Dead Man's Hill. Okay, 30th September, again, no forward movement by the 1st Battalion 308th. The adjacent units close up. They finally get through and receive a resupply. In fact, just one of the events that happens here on the 29th, and this is actually one of the unknown, an Oregonian, by the way. Lieutenant Colonel Fred Smith, who's the second in command of the 308th, takes about a dozen men and tries to bring up an ammunition carrying party to break through those 4 companies, and they are repelled. And in the process of that, Smith is actually in close combat firing with his .45 and gets killed by the Germans, leaving this 15-man sort of patrol, but really resupply effort to get ammunition to the 4 cut-off companies that are in the small pocket. So Fred Smith is actually the first in this whole sequence of events. He's the first guy who recommended for a Medal of Honor, which he eventually receives. His wife receives its posthumous award of the Medal of Honor for trying to break through the 4 companies in the small pocket. Finally, they break through. The adjacent units come up on 30th September. First 308, which is Whittlesey's battalion, gets rations, ammunition, and water resupplied. That's the last they're going to get until this thing's all over. They're not getting any hot rations. They've got cold corn willy. They've got cold hardtack, hard bread. They've got water in their canteens, and they've topped off with ammunition. But that's the last resupply that the lost battalion is going to get. 1st of October, they begin advance towards that Charlevaux Mill. They go via the ravine to Argonne, and they halt their advance about 1700. At this time of year in France, sunup really doesn't happen until about 8 o'clock-ish in the morning, 08 in the morning. Sundown, it's really getting into dusk and deep dusk in October in that part of France by about 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. By 8 o'clock at night, it's pretty much pitch black. So before it's full darkness, they halt short of Charlevaux. They resume the attack on 0600 on 2nd October, again advancing toward the Charlevaux Mill. They have a light barrage that only lasts for about half an hour that gives them some support, and they don't make much headway again. They spend the rest of the day, 6:20 to 7. They try and attack. By mid-morning, the attack falls back to their start line. They're told again at about noon and 30, take off on that attack again. And finally, by about 7 o'clock in the evening, they arrive in what we know as the pocket. Again, according to Rob Ladner, about 680 men, companies A, B, C of the 1st Battalion, E, G, and H from the 2nd Battalion, 308th Infantry, Company K, 307th Infantry, that's the one commanded by Nelson Holderman. Holderman is one of the renowned heroes. Holderman ends up receiving about 6 or 7 wounds, survives the action. At the very end, he's literally propped up with 2 rifles, shooting his pistol. Survives the action miraculously and receives a Medal of Honor as well. And he is given, when you see the outline of where he's given his place in the pocket, is the right flank because Holderman's a real fighter. And Whittlesey knows Holderman's going to be the guy that will hold the right flank. So he holds that right flank of the pocket the entire time. Company C and D of the 306 Machine Gun Battalion, again, they came in with 9 Hotchkiss machine guns. And they set those up on the flanks, to give themselves some protecting fire. Once they're there, this is one of Whittlesey's many messages to his troops, and he's sort of a master communicator in combat. He's walking around the entire time. Miraculously, of all the officers that go into this action, Whittlesey and 1 lieutenant are the only officers that never receive a single wound. Every other officer receives 1 and most multiple wounds. Whittlesey's walking around, bucking the guys up, very calm, cool, collected. He sends this message. He knows once he's there, our mission is to hold this position at all costs, have this understood by every man in command. He sent that by messenger, written message to every subordinate officer with him in the pocket. Make sure your men know this is what we're going to do. We're sticking and we're going to hold. Okay, so that's the second. We get to the third. 3rd of October, the Germans capture the runner line. And remember, there's only so many ways you can communicate with World War I. You can communicate with a landline telephone, but artillery fire tends to cut those wires very easily. You can communicate with a series of runners, and that's what Whittlesey chose to do. About every 100 yards, you drop a man off as they advanced. So if they needed to get a message to the rear, you just sent that back 1 runner to the other runner to the other runner, and back to the rear, where your higher headquarters would get the message. The other means of communication Whittlesey has at his disposal is carrier pigeons. He goes into the fight with about 6 carrier pigeons, perhaps, maybe a little bit more. But remember, carrier pigeon is a one-way communication. You can't send a carrier pigeon forward. The carrier pigeons go in on their own block. So that's a way to get a message to the rear, but it does you nothing as far as getting messages forward. So he's got some carrier pigeons with him, one of whom becomes a hero here. So 3rd of October, this is when they start to realize, whoa, we can't get any messages. Nobody can get out to the rear. So their runner lines like that. That's when they realize, oh, by about the 2nd into the 3rd of October, hey, we are, for all intents and purposes, we're surrounded. We can't get anything out to the rear. We can't get messages to the rear. Everybody that goes to the rear trying to scout out what happens is either killed or wounded. And they realize, we're pretty much encircled. Mid-morning, there's one of the first big Hindenburg attacks. That's the German light mortar. By about 3 o'clock, there's a major German attack to try and collapse the pocket. And again, at about 5 o'clock at night, another attack. So that's all in one day. Mid-morning artillery fire and 2 concerted attacks to try and reduce the pocket. And at about dark, the Germans pretty much stop playing. And we'll see what happens. By 4th of October, there are about 50% casualties in the pocket. So about half the force is wounded in some way. In the morning, the Germans do another attack. These 2 officers, these both captains, Gettler and Langley from the 50th Aero Squadron, attempt to find the battalion. They fly over in a 2-seater DH-4, the Havilland DH-4 aircraft, and attempt to locate where exactly these guys are in the lost battalion. Where is the pocket? They do an overflight. Interestingly, Gettler is actually the pilot. Langley is an artillery officer. Anybody want to guess why? He's an artillery air observer. And he's a pretty good guy at it. They do numerous overflights. The aircraft's getting shot up. They do numerous overflights. Langley's kind of pretty sure he's got it right. You can read a map, you can figure out orientation and figure out the view from the ground, get it together with a map. But they're still not really sure. It's very heavily forested. They can't actually fly due to weather conditions until about mid-morning, so they've got a window for flight where you can actually see stuff and it's not cloudy or rainy, of about 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's the first overflight by Gettler and Langley, trying to locate the lost battalion. At 15:30, there's a friendly fire barrage that lands directly on the pocket. This is kind of the things have gone from bad to really bad. They can tell this is friendly fire. They can hear it coming. They can hear the direction it's coming from. There's no doubt this is friendly fire landing on our own position. By this point, they're down to 2 carrier pigeons left. And his name escapes me, but one of the privates who had 2 pigeon ears, that's the old soldiers that were pigeon carrier guys. Two pigeon ears. Whittlesey says, I got to get a message back. You got to stop this artillery fire. It's friendly fire. It's kill us. And the the pigeoneer gets out one of the pigeons, and a shell lands really close, and he drops it, and the pigeon takes off. So now they're down to one pigeon. They've got one pigeon left, Jeremy. They actually named their pigeons. And their one pigeon left is Jeremy, last period. And he sends a message and goes back. Jeremy takes off, goes about 10 feet, and stops on a tree stump. The guys start throwing sticks at the tree stump and rocks, and they've got the bird moving. And the bird takes another hop and goes up and gets on top of the tree. And Germans can see this. Germans are trying to shoot the bird. They know exactly what this bird's about. Germans are shooting the bird. Americans are throwing sticks and rocks. Finally, the pigeoneer, in really an amazing feat of bravery, jumps out of his foxhole and climbs about halfway up the tree and starts shaking. Fly, you damn bird. And the bird eventually takes off. The bird arrives back at the pigeon loft. The bird is missing one leg. The leg with the message attached is still there. That's a good thing. Has a broken wing, an eye shot out, missing one leg. But the pigeon arrives back at the pigeon loft. The message goes in. They disseminate that to the artillery, and the friendly fire stops. But it's done lots of damage. Okay, 5th of October. The 50th Aero Squadron starts attempting airdrops into the position. That's not an airdrop like we would normally think of with a fancy parachute and a pallet and a container. These are literally baskets padded with medical supplies, maybe some rations and maybe some ammunition that they just literally throw over the side of the plane as you go over the site. There's no parachute, there's no streamer. It's just a free drop of material. They try in all about 8 different free drop resupplies into the pocket. None of them land within the pocket. They all land outside the pocket in German territory, which becomes bad. They all fall outside the pocket. 1500 in the afternoon, the Germans staged a machine gun barrage. And send more on Lost Battalion. There are American correspondents back at American Army headquarters, and they first hear of Lost Battalion. And one of them actually sends a wire back to his newspaper in the States, and the immediate response is, send more on Lost Battalion. You know, the newspaper guys in the States, this is going to be a great story. A horrible story, it's going to be a great story. So, as early as 5 October, people are starting to hear about this Lost Battalion. Send more on Lost Battalion, we want to know what it's all about. Let's see. Colonel Stacy, yes, Colonel Stacy gets relieved. He actually gets relieved as a neuropsychiatric casualty, not what they call him that. He was diagnosed with shell shock and relieved. And things that are taking so many officer casualties throughout this, you can see he's a full colonel replaced by a captain. Captain Breckenridge now commands 385th Regiment. 6th of October, 8:30 in the morning, Getler and Langley attempt an aircraft. They fly over and they push their basket out. Their aircraft is shot up. Their aircraft is really shot up. They manage to make it back to their aerodrome. They land. They take a look at the aircraft and they go, wow, this aircraft is not flying anymore today. They borrow another aircraft and take another attempt out and try another airdrop. In that attempt, again, they drop it again. The supplies fall outside the pocket into German hands. Getler gets shot in the head. He's killed immediately. And the plane crashes and likely dies of internal injuries. These two guys, Getler and Langley, are both awarded, I believe they're the first Air Service Medal of Honor recipients in World War I for flying over Lost Battalion twice, particularly that second attempt where they get killed. They're flying low. I mean, they're flying probably 15, 20, 30 feet above treetop level, trying to drop these supplies. And if you go to the site, it's surrounded by big hills. They're actually flying under where German machine guns are shooting at when they go in and try to make these airdrop resupply efforts. This is an interesting. This is the interesting story that didn't come out until a lot of the modern research. About midday on the 6th, Lieutenant Remus, one of the lieutenants from the 306th Machine Gun Battalion, sends a message. When he uses field message book, sends a message to Colonel Whittlesey and basically says, we really need to think about surrender. And that is bad news. It's bad news for us. They bring that to the command group. The command group consists of Whittlesey, his executive officer, Captain George McMurtry, and they read the message. And Whittlesey says, I think Remus is getting a little nervous. And Whittlesey, once again, gets out of his hole, goes down and sits down, has a talk with Remus, says, things aren't really that bad. You know, we're just going to stick it out there. It'll be fine. He was to defense of redness. He's had one of his heels shot off. He's missing part of a foot by this point. That's his only wound, but it's a painful one. When Whittlesey gets back to his command post, he says, well, guys, what do you think about this? If Murtry is second in command and some of the other officers, we've got to press charges against this guy. This is a violation of the law of, the laws of warfare and UCMJ. Well, they didn't have UCMJ. But if you entice your commanding officer to give up a position or station, that's a court-martial offense. Because we need to press charges against this result, against Lieutenant Revers, which they do. I'll talk about that later. This is getting really bad. By the 6th, 7th of October, nobody's had anything to eat. Nobody's had a hot meal since they jumped off on the 26th of September. Their last resupply was back there on about the 30th of September. So the Germans figure out pretty quickly. They train a bunch of machine guns on the Charlevoix Mill Creek, a little stream, so that anybody that tries to get water gets shot. And guys are constantly trying to go outside the pocket, get to the stream, get some water, bring it back to the guys. They reach the point where they're literally taking bandages. Remember, they've only got 4 enlisted medics, one of whom gets wounded really badly about the 2nd of October, so then he's down to about 3 enlisted medics. They're down to the point of taking bandages and first aid dressings off of dead guys to put them on live guys. They're taking off their wrapped leggings and using their wrapped wool leggings, which are covered with muck and mud, and using those as dressings, because they have no dressings. None of these resupplies have fallen within the pocket. Guys are starving. They smoked their last cigarette. Guys are literally smoking leaves. They've got rolling papers, but they're smoking leaves occasionally. It's getting bad. They're not totally out of ammunition. They've still got ammunition, but by about this point, I remember I said they went in with 9 Hotchkiss guns. By about the 7th of October, they're down to 2 functioning Hotchkiss guns. All the other ones have been put out of action. They've got 2 machine guns left out of 9. They've still got small arms ammunition for the most part. They went in with a pretty heavy load. But yeah, things are getting really, really bad. 7th of October, this is one of the kind of the key day. The Germans send a surrender demand in. I showed you in the initial Schoonover painting, the fanciful Schoonover painting. This private Lowell Hollingshead brings in this surrender demand. Typewritten by a German officer named Prince, who lived for about 15 years in Seattle, Washington. Spoke very good English. It's very well written. In fact, I'll grab it real quick. I'll read it real quick because we have time. Sends the surrender. Okay, to commanding officer, 2nd Battalion, 308th Infantry, 77th Division. Sir, the bearer of this present, Lowell R. Hollingshead, yet Hollingshead signed his name on a piece of paper, has been taken prisoner by us. He refused the German intelligence officer every answer to his questions and is quite an honorable fellow, doing honor to his fatherland in the strictest sense of the word. He has been charged against his will, believing he is doing wrong to his country in carrying this message to you. Blah, 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 blah. And it goes on and it says, the suffering of your wounded men can be heard over here in German lines. We are appealing to your human sentiments. A white flag shown by one of your men will tell us you agree with these conditions. Please treat Lowell R. Hollingshead as an honorable man. He is a soldier. We envy you, the German commanding officer. Has anybody seen the Lost Battalion movie with Ricky Schroeder? Oh, it's an entertaining movie. It repeats just about everything that's wrong. and the glaring one in that is when the surrender note comes in. In the movie, they have Colonel Whittlesey take the note, put it on a stick, and hurl it like a javelin back at the Germans. He did nothing of the sort. In fact, when they asked some of his higher headquarters, when they found out that Whittlesey had this German surrender demand coming, they said, well, what did he say? And they said, well, of course, he said, go to hell. So Whittlesey, forever after, he was known as Go to Hell Whittlesey, which he hated. He absolutely detested. Whittlesey's a very calm, cool New England kind of guy. Grows up, born in Wisconsin, I believe, moves back to Pittsfield, Massachusetts, graduate of Williams College, graduate of Harvard Law School, practicing lawyer in New York City, very intelligent, well-read, calm demeanor kind of guy. And the last thing he wants to be known as is go to hell with. Nonetheless, he gets that name and it kind of should. About that, also on the 7th, the 50th Aero Squadron has finally actually confirmed the location. They've got a really good fix on where the pocket is, and they confirmed to higher headquarters 77 Division, hey, there's still guys in there and they're still holding out. What Whittlesey actually said, in his official report, he said no answer about the surrender demand. He said no answer, there was no answer needed, and there was none given. And talking to one of the other survivors, his aide, he had an Italian aide named Sapeglia. Zip was his nickname. Zip Sapeglia. And apparently the only thing that Whittlesey did was he told Sapeglia, take in all the white signal panels, because they had white signal panels for air-to-ground signal purposes. So take in all the white signal panels. I want no white showing from the division. That's all I said. So he's made it clear, no, we're not playing surrender game. The word begins to circulate throughout the pocket that the Germans are demanding surrender. And these guys let loose for that. All those guys, more foul language expended in 20 minutes than you can imagine, telling the Germans just where the hell they're surrendering. Again, this is the 77th Division, is a draftee division from New York City, almost entirely from New York City. Probably, by some accounts, as many as 100 different languages spoken in the division. There's every ethnic variety you can imagine. When they're in training, what they end up doing surreptitiously, take all the guys who speak one language, put them in one squad with one guy who speaks English. And when they get a command, you translate to those guys real quick, and so eventually they got better as time went on. But, they had Chinese Americans, they had Jewish Americans, they had Irish, they had Italian, they had every nation under the sun. Everything you could possibly find in New York City in 1917, 1818, ended up in the 77th Division. He orders the panel brought in. He sends this cat. This guy is horrible looking. Private Protoshinsky. Whittlesey said that was the most unsoldierly soldier he had in his entire command. This guy looked, he was Joe Dirt Man, Joe the rag bag. He said, ask for a volunteer to try and go to the rear and get a message out. And again, they've done it for a long time. You can't get up the rear way. The Germans have got us surrounded. Abe Protoshinsky exfiltrates out of the pocket. He literally crawls for about 3 miles. At one point, he's crawling, he's covered in so much mud, the German patrol comes by and walks on his hand and doesn't realize that he's alive. And Protoshinsky eventually gets back. And meanwhile, the rest of the division has been trying to break through these guys. They find him. He says, yep, we're all still there. Protoshinsky gets a Distinguished Service Cross for that little feat of valor. By about 6:20, the 1st Battalion of 307th Infantry breaks in and relieves the pocket. They can smell the pocket about a mile before they can see it. It's absolutely horrible. I mean, there's people blown up, excrement, dead, blood, dying. I mean, it's just a mess. And as they're going forward, the guys are going, I smell it. That's where these guys are. So they get there on the evening of the 7th. They start, the guys who initially make contact start sharing rations and water, using whatever first aid kits they got with them, individual first aid kits. On the 8th of October, there's actually concerted evacuation of the wounded out of the pocket by ambulance. They take them out on that road, the Charlevoix-Langley-Eustis, all the way back to Apremont Road, by ground ambulance, probably Model T's, the light ambulance, the Model T ambulance that was used at the time. General Alexander comes up to the pocket and tells Whittlesey, you're now Lieutenant Colonel Whittlesey, thank you very much, and immediately proclaims that on that friendly fire barrage, that's French. just right out of here. That's French artillery here. It had nothing to do. Which was a lot. It's a ball-based lot. By about 1500, they've evacuated everybody that's wounded, and they take the head down, and Whittlesey has 194 guys that can march out of the pocket. He went in with 680. He has 194 guys that can stand up and march out of the pocket. Yeah. And they march out, they eventually by late afternoon, march out of the pocket towards Apremont on the Langley-Eustis Road. The Charlevoix-Langley-Eustis Road. Whittlesey is almost immediately returned to the States, and he's promoted to Lieutenant Colonel. He's the first officer to actually get pinned with a Medal of Honor. It's not the first gallantry event for which an award was made, but he's the first to actually get a Medal of Honor pinned on. Pinned on Washington Common, there's 10,000 spectators. That's how many people knew about the Lost Battalion and Charles Wilson. 10,000 spectators came to Boston Common for the award ceremony. The officer that pinned it on was Clarence Edwards, who had earlier commanded the 26th Yankee Division, New England National Guard, and that's the 24th of December. That's a pretty good Christmas present for Colonel Wilson. Remember I talked about Lieutenant Rev Ness, the lieutenant that they brought up on charges? They did in fact bring him up on charges for enticing a commanding officer to involve verbiage, but basically enticing someone to surrender a post-camper station. But they've got a problem. Lots of these guys are dead, lots of these guys are dead, lots of these guys want to return to the States, and eventually they drop the idea of court-martialing Lieutenant Rev Ness. He's never really court-martialed, but he was brought up on charges. Fast forward a little bit to 1921, America decides that we're going to have, like all the other Allied nations, an unknown soldier. They bring the unknown soldier back on the USS Olympia from France, and they have an event at Arlington National Cemetery, and Whittlesey is one of the honorary pallbearers at the entombment of the unknown soldier of World War I. He's very somber. His next in command, George McMurtry, is there, and he says during the ceremony, "George, I should never have come here." Obviously, at this point, Whittlesey is suffering what today we call PTSD and a lot of survivor guilt. An amazing amount of survivor guilt. So we fast forward just a couple weeks later, Whittlesey does a number of things. He writes 5 or 6 letters. He writes a letter to his former law partner. He writes a letter to a bunch of his brothers and his parents. He signs a check for his rent to his landlady. He gives her the check, says, "You need to cash this one fast." Literally, told her, "I recommend you cash this one sooner rather than later." Gets on a boat. He actually represented the company that owned this boat. It was a fruit boat, a banana boat, which went back and forth to Cuba. And his company, his law firm, was representing him. He booked passage on the USS Taloa, was going to go to Cuba, and when asked, he just said, "Well, I'm just going to get away for a while." And somewhere about 23-30 hours, sat down, had dinner, was having a normal conversation, seemed to be in a good frame of mind with everybody, but he disappeared, went on the top side, got on the deck, and disappeared, went over the side, never been seen again. The end of Colonel Wilson. So I'll run through some pictures real quick. Look. There's Charles W. Whittlesey. This is probably taken, there's some confusion about the images. Most of the images, 4 or 5 images, taken of the Lost Battalion and Whittlesey and other key individuals. Some of them were taken as late as the end of October, and some of them were taken the day that they marched out. I'm going to show you some. So this is one of the ones that was taken about 2 weeks after the event. He's talking to Major Carl McKinney. This was the battalion commander from the 307th that brought the first relief troops in to the Lost Battalion, so he's having a little discussion there with McKinney. There's Whittlesey after his award of Medal of Honor on the 24th of December. There's Cherami, showing the good side of the eye. The other side is a socket, an empty socket on the other side. There's the one eye, the one leg, the other wing's there. You can see Cherami, his name was Carrier Pigeon at the Smithsonian. It's still there, on display. This is the transcript of the message. When they did a pigeon message, it was done on almost like tissue paper, very light tissue paper, put in the capsule, which is attached to the pigeon's leg. It gets back to the loft, and then somebody reads it, transcribes it, and then sends it to who it needs to go to. This is the transcription from 1st Battalion 308 Infantry. We are along the road parallel 276.4. Our own artillery is dropping a barrage directly on us. For heaven's sake, stop. Whittlesey. That's the actual message. And I don't know that anybody knows where the original handwritten tissue paper message is. The surrender demand letter, the one that the German officer, Lieutenant Prinz, typed out on the typewriter, one of the letters, before Whittlesey went on his last vacation, he willed that to the second in command. So that went to Mercury actually got the original of the surrender demand letter. There's George W. McMurtry, second in command. This guy's an interesting guy. Rich will know about this. He's a little bit older. He 1898, he was a Rough Rider, Teddy Roosevelt. And if you know anything about Benjamin, you know anything about the Rough Riders, Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders. Some of those guys, Rich knows, of course. Some of those guys were Ivy Leaguers. One of the troops was Ivy League guys from all the East Coast Ivy League schools, and lots of them were cowpunchers and all kinds of adventurers. Well, he's one of the guys from one of the Ivy League schools. Fought with Teddy Roosevelt in 1898. Went on. He also got a law degree. He's another law guy, law degree guy. Let's see. He made millions. He was a millionaire. He made millions on Wall Street as a Wall Street lawyer. He was a millionaire when he went in as a captain in World War I. So he was already millions. But he became even bigger millionaire later. In fact, when there was after the war, there was a Lost Battalion Survivors Association that met all the way up into the early 60s. McGeorge bankrolled every one of the meetings. Every one of them. He did not apparently suffer so badly as Whittlesey from PTSD. He was known by the end of his life. He retired to Maine. He was known as the meanest man in Maine. But he did not really exhibit a lot of the symptomology that Whittlesey did. There's a picture of the pocket from Soldier's Eye View. You can see that's a shell hole filled with water. There is a stream. The stream is the one available source for any drinking water that runs through the bottom of the ravine. That's a part of the road there. See some fighting positions there. If you go there today, you can still make out where the fighting positions are. There are still remnants coming up out of the ground. People have found ammunition and dog tags and nest kits and lots of first aid packets and everything you can imagine, the way of artifacts. It's still there. It is private property now. People that own the Charlottesville Mill talk about selling the entire piece of property. There are some people that, it's not like America with, let's preserve the Civil War battlefields, but there are people that would like to see the actual site preserved. Don't know how well that's going to turn out. This is a picture on the Langley-Eustis Road. That's probably on the 8th of October. They actually brought in what some people might remember as a clubmobile. That's probably a YMCA or a Red Cross clubmobile with chocolate and coffee and donuts and odds and ends. And those are some of the survivors there on the Langley-Eustis Road. Unfortunately, this is not bigger. I've got another one that's a little bit larger. Now this one, this is the 194 survivors. That's it. Whittlesey is off to the left in this image partially. You can't really see all of it, but he's there. That's his 194 guys that can still walk after they were gone. And this is erroneously dated. I asked Bob Laplander, it's dated the 29th. He said, no. I've talked to enough guys and read enough of the sources to know that they took 2 images of the 194 survivors on the 8th. And then later on the 29th, they took some other images on the same piece of ground. This is one of he's convinced that Bob Laplander, doing the kind of research he does, I believe him, that is a picture of the 194. There's a better picture of 194. That's actually in the vicinity of the pocket. It's not in the pocket proper. It's closer to the Charlottesville Mill, where there's sort of open meadow space. That's Whittlesey. Right there. And that's his 194 survivors. And on the Langley-Eustis Road, when you go there, if you go there today, if you drive down the Langley-Eustis Road, this is the original marker. That's been there since about 1930, marking the Lost Battalion site. Listing is 2 to 7 October. Lists the companies and shows an arrow right down to the bottom. There's a much newer monument that's gone up. I didn't get a good picture of it. I don't particularly care for it. It's very artistic. And it doesn't have much context, but it shows a bunch of helmets and sort of wreckage of war with a carrier pigeon on top of the helmet. It looks like a carrier pigeon is pooping on a helmet. I don't particularly care for that one, but it's there. So that's all I have. That's kind of the story. It goes down and is the most known story of World War I in its time. Again, the 8th of October is when Sergeant York goes off on his exploits. And if you want to go back, put that in context. So you can say, why did the Germans never get these guys out of there? Why did they never just exterminate the entire battalion? he never had to say there's no surrender. He just said, our mission is to hold us. That's all I said. Everybody that saw him said he was, in the pocket. He was calm, cool, collected. He shaved the first 3 days. And finally realized, we're running out of water, I better stop shaving. But he shaved the first 3 days, they were surrounded. Constantly in motion, around the pocket, never wounded. McGeorge was wounded. The funny story about McGeorge was wounded in the knee. He had a very painful knee wound, but he still hobbled around, bucking the guys up. Hey, we're going to get through this. Hang steady, hang tough, and everything's going to be fine. And one evening, he came back to the hole, foxhole that he and Wilsey shared, and Wilsey said, "What's that thing sticking out of your back?" Pulled this thing out of his back, and McGeorge lets out a big grunt and said, "If you were really going to kill you." There was a handle of the German potato masher which had exploded and driven itself into his back. So he had the knee wound and was walking around. He didn't even know he had it. He was walking around for half a day probably, not realizing he had half a German potato masher handle sticking out of his back and tailed in his back. I say Holderman gets Holderman's got K Company 304 K Company Commander 307 gets 5 or 6 wounds, virtually all of them. And just to kind of finish this off, so when it's all over, you think about it, just some little kind of statistics, this little statistical write-up. 2 of every 3 men that went in were killed or wounded. 2 of every 3. That's 66% casualties. Amazing number of valor awards. There's Colonel Wilsey, gets the Medal of Honor. Major McMurtry, Captain, and later Major McMurtry, Medal of Honor. Captain Nelson Holderman, Medal of Honor. Getler and Bleckling, the 2 Air Service pilots, both Medal of Honor. The First Sergeant of Company K 307, Ben Kaufman, gets the Medal of Honor, and Private Archie Peck from Alpha Company 308, who was one of the guys who made a patrol to the rear pretty successfully, gets the Medal of Honor. And in addition to that, there's over 30 Distinguished Service Crosses awarded for this 5 days. Questions, comments? Sir?
Did they have much of a choice in the selection of ground? That where they stopped, or if they stopped by the Germans, or could he have gotten to the ridge?
They thought 307th on the right and adjacent French units on the left had kept abreast of them, they could have got up to the top of them. But once they got, it looks like a horrible place. You look at it, why would anybody pick this place? Well, he was told to go there, first of all. That was basically, you've got to get to the Langley-Eustis road. And they get there, and it's a 30-foot bluff. Again, that works to their advantage, saves them from incoming German artillery fire. But the Germans immediately shut the door on them, not only to the front, but there's a hill, several hills to the rear. So they're basically walking in a valley surrounded by 3 hills. If they'd had good contact with the units, they might have been able to keep going and go up the hill in front of them and get to the top. So the Germans used everything they had. Flamethrowers, they incinerated some folks. Now, good thing, positive side of a flamethrower, if there is such a thing, if you're defending against a flamethrower, the guy that's the flamethrower operator is a very conspicuous target. And so the Americans did a pretty good job of shooting flamethrower operators, but not before some of them got incinerated by flamethrowers. Two of the four medics get the Distinguished Service Cross. Other questions, comments?
So, I'm going to cut you off a bit.
Okay.
Time-wise. So, thank you very much, Steve, for coming and doing the presentation. We really appreciate it. It's really great. I welcome all of you to come up and ask him all the questions you want. He's going to be here for a while, for as long as he needs to be. And come to our next event on October 17th at 6 p.m. There might be whiskey at the end of that. And then on the 28th, and then the second Wednesday of November, we will be talking about the Civil War footprint that we have here at Fort Eustis. So it'll be really cool.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.